And this is made by Whiteside. That's where we try and get all our bits. They're really quality bits. And this is called a mortising bit. It's a really shallow cutter. It was designed for cutting shorter tenons at the router table with a miter sled. So I can run a stick of wood in this orientation, run across this, but it's great for cutting shoulders, which we're basically doing. We're cutting a long tenon. And you'll see when I cut this, how clean this shoulder is, which doesn't necessarily matter for a bottom divider that will be hidden by a drawer. But if you want to do this joint on a more contemporary piece where it's a bedside dresser that comes together, you need a really nice tight looking shoulder. This will absolutely give you a better looking shoulder than the dado stack, guaranteed. So, something to think about. This fence is great, even though it's looks wild, and we want to make a new zero clearance opening for it. So I milled up a piece of MDF with some double stick tape. Now the longer, just as a reminder, the longer you leave the double stick tape on, the harder it is to take off. So doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong if you're leaving it on, but just something to note. And that's why this looks like this. It's probably due for a clean. I'm sure we'll do it one day.
I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who has trouble with double stick tape.
Always. Crucial tool though.
Run out of corners to peel up. Well, one thing's come off.
No fingernails.
And so this is where you need test stock. If you are still milling up your bottom divider, you need test stock of the same thickness. Doesn't need to be the same species, doesn't need to be, it's helpful if it is, but you need test stock that is the exact same thickness for this to be proper. Because this is a demo, I'm just going to use the other, so we marked where our tenons are here, I'm just going to use the other side of this, but you would need a whole other piece to make sure this is good. And I'm also going to run this through in this orientation, right? And I'm going to use this push pad that I made behind it, because what we're cutting, we're doing a cross cut across the grain. And the fibers want to tear out. So I need to trick the cutter into thinking that I have more material coming from behind it, so it cuts in to my piece of wood behind it, so I don't get some blowout, especially in oak. Okay? So, and this push pad this is 2 scrap pieces I milled up real quick, and it's super glued on there, and that's all you need. You could reuse this a few times, and I don't use plywood when you don't have to. These cutters don't like plywood. They're designed to cut wood, not plywood with a bunch of glue. So MDF, like when you can avoid it, it's always good to not cut with plywood or MDF. So that's when I have this push pad. I'm just going to hold it down with my hand here, because if your board is like cupped or bowed, you might need to have a push pad down here for a really positive result. I think I can get away with just using my hand and this behind as I travel through. Okay? Now I got to do a little bit of setup, staying conservative, and I'll raise this up a skosh. I need to create my zero clearance in my opening right now. And I can actually, before I do that, drop that again. I don't need much of a shoulder. I need a 16th shoulder, right? So I can try and get this as close, pretty close now. See what that does. that's one. I've set the height. Now I need to set. I'm going to cut into this fence a little bit.
So we're not locking anything until we're done setting that?
Yeah, for now. And honestly, with these routers, you don't necessarily need to lock it every time. They don't really jump like that. So I got that set. I'll turn it on, and I have it clamped on this side. I'm going to pivot it into the cutter. I'm going to do two things right now. I'm going to find how much I actually want this bit exposed, which is 7/16. That's how tall I want my tenon to be. But where those cuts are, I can also make marks as to where my cutter's starting and stopping. So this is also the nice thing about making your own boards with your own router bits, is I can see right where it cut, and I can bring the pencil line up. And that's generally where it's starting and stop. I don't need this to be dead accurate. I just want a general idea of where this is happening, right? And the next thing is I have it unplugged again, and I'm going to turn the bit to 6 o'clock in relation to where my fence is. And I can take any piece of wood, because that's just like the upcut spiral bit. That 6 o'clock position where this cutter is sticking out is the widest point of the cut. And so I can take a piece of wood and just gently, I just stopped it on that little cutter. And I can measure between the distance between my fence and the outside edge, and that is how deep my cut's going to be. Okay? So right now I'm above 7/16. So I have it clamped over here still. And way above. Looks pretty good. And you got to measure it right where it's cutting. I can go here, but it could look like this, look at that. I can't really trust that. But here, it's a positive stop. And this is just to get close. Okay. So I like that, I think. I'll clamp it down. And plug it back in, and I'm on my test stock right now. I'll make some test cuts.
Stock.
Yeah, that's my real board side. I got no tear out on either side because I had that piece of wood running behind it, so that cut it right into it, imagining it was one board. And that's you don't get that on the dado stack. That is nice and smooth, right? So when you're actually joining something that is a board that's going to be exposed on the top of a dresser or something, your shoulder's going to look really good, guaranteed. So it's just a nice bit for you. So
What's the name of that bit?
it's a mortising bit.
Mortising.
We have the number somewhere.
All right.
They're all like 1305B and that kind of stuff. So now I ran my test stock, and we're going to start fitting it in. Oh well, that's pretty darn good. So that's what you want.
Done and done.
Yeah, and maybe it's a little looser than I'd like here. It's just lifting up. That's really good. It could be a hair heavier, but know that the glue is going to swell this up as well. And you're not just locking in 1, 2, and 3. You're also locking in is wet. So there's a lot of surface area to make contact with. So there's a balance between, you'll know when it's too light. I mean, I shouldn't be able to, if you can, right between it, and no good. You gotta start over, right? But, you know, on your test stock, I could just rip this off at the table saw and go for it and lower my bit just a hair. Also, you know, yesterday, I'll tell you what happened where I was a little too light on my test piece, and instead of readjusting, you know, sort of the nuances of machining where I can, you know, how hard you hold it down really changes it. You guys have probably noticed that on the jointer and the dado stack, and so, you know, that's where the finesse of machining comes in. And when I ran my real piece, I just held this down really light. And basically the cut, you know, I'm not putting it into the cutter as much. And because I knew from my test stock, if I held it down really hard, it would be way too thin, or just too thin. So I just held it down just to run it through, and it was a perfect fit then. So it's just one of those things you want to notice. Or if it's a little too tight, instead of raising the bit up again, maybe you just need to push down a little harder and run it one more time. That, just to reiterate that. Okay, so I like that. I'm going to run my actual tenon side now, my real tenon board, and everything's locked in. So let's do that. Oh, let's check how tall this is. Honestly, it's under half an inch, but it's a little closer to, it's not quite at 7/16, and we just did all this measuring to make sure that this is actually at 7/16, so you can't, you know, be close. You want to be on the money. So I'm going to, it's a little too heavy, so I need to bring the bit, or the fence in just a hair. And I ran test stock, and we're good, so we're going to move on. Good. Okay. So
No wobble.
No wobble. Now, and that's why we transferred before, because it's a lot easier when that thing is at true thickness instead of running these shoulders. It'd be hard to transfer. So now I go to my bench, which for me today is that moccasin vise right here. So let's come over here.